Do you mind sitting here and just waiting? Yeah, everything's open. Is the microphone on? Or is this unmuted? Yeah. Oh, that's on. Wait, Leanne, could you just grab me my program over there? Hey guys, it's a social. Okay. Thank you so much for everyone for coming out today. This is really great. See so many people. We're gonna start in a few minutes. We're still waiting. Because a lot of people are having issues with parking, so we're gonna get started in like a few like 10, 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. In the meantime, if you guys are feeling like there's some questions over there. There's some chips and water. Please feel free to help yourself. Stay hydrated. Really happy today. Yeah. I thought we were waiting for yeah, can you just, oh yeah. I didn't know what to do, and I don't know what to do. It's almost, I mean, it's really tough one, but you said a lot of people are still having issues with parking. Well, I'm trying to tell them to park down. I'll go back out there and tell them, okay? Yeah, that would be, all right. Thanks for me. Is that all? Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, so I just press it, turn it on.
Thank you so much.
Wait, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just
Like sitting like that? I feel really bad.
no.
Okay, thank you so much.
My one thing.
What? Yeah. But we're coughing it out. Yeah. It's like the heavy. You get uncomfortable. All right, Leanne, can you get started? Yeah. I'm just kidding. Okay. I can totally do this. Well, it's fine. Hi everyone. No, that's wrong. Hi everyone. First, okay. Okay, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I can't even begin to describe how amazing it feels to see physically all the support that we have from within our own community. I really want to reiterate our hope today is to create a positive and safe environment for students to share their experiences and be heard by administration. Historian Inez Selden Johnson once wrote, "So much history has been lost because those who lived it are no longer here to share it with us." Thanks to our current digital age, preserving the current day's history is secondhand nature to us all. However, a lot of the history of the park that we are currently standing in remains underrepresented in public knowledge. Penland Village was once a vibrant Black community, and its history is captured by E. Gloria Stewart Jones in her book, Penland Village, Lest We Forget. For example, during the 1840s and 50s, it's possible that Penland had a connection to the Underground Railroad, and after the Emancipation Proclamation, many Black workers migrated to Penland from the South and established a community right here. An audio tape discussing the history of Penland Village was submitted to Wissahickon School District in 1968 as part of its local history curriculum. But when Stewart reached out to the school for this audio tape for her writing of this book, they said it could not be found. The education system has long failed Black members of the community, but we are lucky enough to have people who are willing to fight these battles as uphill as they are. Thaddeus Smith was a community leader who fought for desegregation of schools in Lower Grenada. His children attended the Penland School, which is built here in Penland Park. He believed the Penland School and Lower Gwinnett Elementary Schools were not following or upholding the values of separate but equal compared to the Springhouse School, which was 2 miles away. He said that the Springhouse School had new classrooms and they were sending their old textbooks to the segregated school, which was here in Penland. Following the passing of Brown versus Board of Education, which made school boards responsible for the integration of students, Smith and 4 other families took the case to the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas and won the right for their children to attend Springhouse School in September 1955. We chose to hold this event here today as a reminder that change will not happen in these systems until we come together to demand it. The educational system is a child's first experience with racism, and as a whole, we need to do better. As we listen to the students today, I hope you all will join me in reflecting on our actions and what we can do to improve things for our future generations. Thank you.
Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is I'm a member of Wissahickons class of 2020, and I'll be attending and the devastating impact that they have had on my cultural identity, my inability to speak out or even recognize such experiences earlier. After conversing with many of my peers, I came to realize that such instances of overt and subtle racial and cultural discrimination are not isolated. Instead, they continue to actively plague the walls of Wissahickon. However, it's important to note that these problems do not just go unspoken in Wissahickon, but in many suburban schools like our own. In fact, I recently learned that after World War II, there was a suburban housing boom in which white families moved out of the cities into the suburbs, while Black families were stuck in the cities where property values plummeted and schools lacked resources. As a result, suburban schools today are often predominantly white and better funded than even as suburban districts diversify. Students of color are still in the minority. And because well-funded schools like your own ranking some labels such as Ace in the State or National Blue Ribbon recognition, the widespread discrimination in these schools is often overlooked for their learning environment. Today, we are here to learn more about Wissahickon School District. We must take a stance against the overt and subtle racism that plagues our community. We must educate ourselves and reevaluate our. For too long, Wissahickon students have felt unheard. And today, I ask for every member in the audience to truly listen to our experiences. Don't listen just to respond. Listen to listen and learn from the experiences of current and former students. If you find time, I encourage you to explore where exactly that is coming from. Try to move through the defensiveness and open your hearts and minds to really evolve. By the end of this event, I hope we can, as a collective community, learn how we can work together to make Wissahickon. Hi everyone, my name is Gabrielle Williams, and I graduated in class 2019, and now I attend a laboratory institute of merchandising in Manhattan, New York. There I am head of the PR management in the Black Retail Action Group, and I assist with the fashion editing team for our school magazine. In recent news, I felt there needs to be a conversation for allies of the Black Lives Matter. So I created this conversation.
Is anyone hearing anything?
Nothing for like the last 2 minutes.
I'm thinking it's just me, but it's
Yeah, and
not.
the YouTube, sorry to say, the YouTube is not much smoother, but just so everyone knows, we are currently streaming on YouTube. Like your face is on YouTube right now, just so you know.
Oh, great. Let me fix
You look
my.
great. You look great though. So just like for like the last 2 minutes.
I'm
Right.
thinking it's just me, but it's.
No. Yeah.
They're no longer connected to the Zoom conversation. So if you look through all the, you used to be able to see their little box when you're looking at the participants. They're no longer in this conversation.
So are we supposed to stay here and just look at each other or what?
I'm wondering if they can reconnect at some point. Maybe.
Yeah.
With broccoli wrap. Chicken cutlet, broccoli wrap, and provolone cheese. She loves it. Yeah. You like.
We're not getting it on YouTube either.
I was afraid to try.
I tried and I'm
Yeah,
not getting anything on YouTube.
Let me show you. I'm going to show you. Nope. For like the last 2 minutes.
I'm thinking it's just me, but it's.
Yeah, and
not.
sorry to say. So I unfortunately can't share my screen, but literally on YouTube right now, it's us, like not the conversation. So even this conversation is being streamed live, just so you know.
Great.
I, we are all by yourself. We are all by yourself. With a major delay. With a major delay.
Beth Sanborn is at the event, and I just texted her and told her to tell them that they are not connected.
Well, as they say, best laid plans of mice and men, Afghang and so on. Well, as they say, best laid plans of mice and men, Afghang and so on.
I have a long history of doubting myself, and she could tell that I needed a little push. And sometimes we need that push from teachers who make us feel accepted.
As I said before, I moved to Wissahickon when I was in seventh grade. Luckily, I had been in the gifted program because I was at risk. As I said before, I moved to Wissahickon when I was in seventh grade. Luckily, I had been in the program. That I was in gifted classes. There were basically a program. I was in
Grade and my second last. When she found out that I wasn't in the gifted program, she was determined to have eligibility test. Even though it was too late for me to be accepted into the program, I still passed. I wouldn't have done it without the confidence that she had.
Brittany and I, as well as many of you, can recall many days in school in which we had assemblies. These were often about mental health or cyberbullying, but we never had racism. I can't remember a single time in which the students of Wissahickon were ever reminded about the significance of racial slurs. But families are unfortunately not having as
As we all know, color and reassurance from our staff. Cosette and I cannot say that we students of color, mostly Black students, have shared that they felt disturbed.
encouraged to look anywhere else or even take the essay check to go nowhere, despite all of his teachers saying great things about him. Even with lack of support from WIS, he was accepted into multiple schools and is now a student at Pace University. In addition to him, a large number of our Black peers, including us, were shot down harshly when talking about schools they wish to apply to. Despite being discouraged by some staff from applying to New York University, I got in and was accepted into the Dean's Global Honors Program. I finished up my first year with a 4.0. It's not to say that these experiences cannot happen to white students. However, they are happening to students of color at a disproportionate rate. There is concern for closing the achievement gap, yet it seems as though the actions of Wissahickon High School are the reason why it continues to expand. Your code of conduct preaches equal opportunity, but it doesn't seem to be exercised. In order to close the performance gap between white students and their non-white peers, you need to actually give them the guidance to do so and at least act like you care in the slightest.
Your mission statement on the WSD website states that your goal is to, quote, empower each student to excel to their fullest potential and contribute in full measure to the greater community, end quote. How are students, specifically students of color, meant to reach their fullest potential if the example is being set by Wissahickon administration members who decided not to physically attend today's event? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, oops, sorry. My name is Christopher Jones. Currently go to University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio. I'm a theater major on the pre-med track. I'm also the president of the Multicultural Programming Council on campus, which we diversity and mixed race student think about who I am as a Black, about or rethink. And now, like moments before this, I just realized that in elementary school I did go through some racism. I can say I was a bad kid in school, but I feel like sometimes I feel like I was in trouble because of my skin. Like there was this one instance where this one girl, she had said she was gonna bomb my house. And of course, being the little kid that I was, I repeated it back to her. But of course, the lunch aide at the time, she came over and sent me to the person who was sitting right next to me, had said it to me beforehand. But yet nothing had happened. And I know my parents were mad at me because I said, well, majority of my time, I just went through school as a young kid being like, oh, I'm the bad kid, always get suspended, yeah. But in reality, sometimes it was because of racism, and realizing that now, it's like to me, I'm like, that's really crazy that I got in trouble because of my skin color. I moved to WIS in first grade, and truly, I didn't think WIS could be like that. I thought the teachers were really here for the students, and I felt that they was gonna be here for me and my fellow Black students there. But standing here right now, it's clear that they aren't, or at least some aren't. In high school, I was part of the theater company. We did multiple plays. My junior year, I shared this role with a fellow white student who was in the theater company as well. But I was always confused as to why my character kind of looked like a slave in a way. But when my white co-actor, he was dressed all businessy, like he was doing official business. And I was like, why am I in overalls? Why can't I dress up in a nice suit and tie for a night? But I'm stuck in overalls and having to talk like a slave. And it kind of just hit me in a way. And another thing that happened in the theater company, my senior year, me and one of my fellow actresses, we were giving gifts for our senior night. For our last night, we were given a gift of movies. So I opened mine first. It was Black Panther. I was like, all right, cool. Black Panther just came out. I'm loving it. But then when she got hers, it was also Black Panther. And me and her looked at each other, and at the time we just laughed. We laughed. But then afterwards, it's just like, there really weren't any other movies you could have gave to one of us. Like, we both really had to get Black Panther. And just thinking back, crazy how dismissal they are of things. My brother, who is mildly autistic, him and another child in the AO1 class had gotten to a little altercation. He had pushed my brother. And of course, being the brother that I am, I was going to go talk to the other kid and be like, yo, don't push my brother. But then after lunch, later in the day, I get called to the assistant principal's office asking if I did anything, if I put my hands on the kid. I'm sitting there saying, no, I didn't. But the other kid pushed my brother. Have you talked to him yet? And she's like, no, but I will get to him later. I come home, tell my mom what happened. The next day, she said that she talked to the assistant principal. She said, oh no, the kid's a good kid. I know his family, yeah, but I was the one getting interrogated. I'm the one getting questioned why if I put my hands on someone. First of all, he was a kid in AO1. AO1 has a classroom full of kids who have disabilities. I'm not stupid. Why would I put my hands on someone with a disability? She was really trying to sit there and just play me, and that's not okay. Why would you sit there and question me like you was a police officer? Why are you questioning me if I put my hands on a disabled child? That's crazy to me. But with everything going on, I'm happy to be up here speaking about this today, because it's clear with all my fellow classmates here today that there's definitely an issue within the Wissahickon community, within the school district. And it's clear that there needs to be a change. So I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Autumn German. I was a part of Wissahickons graduating class of 2019, and now I attend Temple University. Something a little different about me is that I became part of the Wissahickon community the middle of my freshman year. Before I jumped into a pool of suburbia and claimed myself as a Trojan, I was just a 14-year-old girl who went to high school in the middle of Center City. But when I first visited WIS, I didn't feel like anything other than another Black girl from Philly. See, I kind of came up with something. I figured that at WIS, there's a certain narrative that comes with every single person of color. No one would directly verbally say it, but the countless times I've been asked questions like, have you seen a shooting? Have you seen a shooting? What was it like living in the hood? Or assumptions about my education prior to the suburbs, restricting me from taking AP or honors classes, and being told a girl with my skin and skill has a good chance of getting an athletic scholarship. With comments like those, it painted a picture of bigotry. And these comments made me uncomfortable. Many of these assumptions I noticed stemmed from the ignorance of those who never talked about race or differences because it made them, the majority, uncomfortable. Kids never learned about the war on drugs in terms of how it weaponized Black communities. Kids never learned about the stories of love, joy, and adventure through the eyes of people of color as a main character. Kids never learned about Malcolm X other than being bad compared to MLK. Kids never learned about that a person of color at such a young age are taught specific steps how to act in front of a police officer. Kids never learned for years because speaking up on race has been labeled uncomfortable. The fact that children experience this inequality in their own neighborhoods has serious implications for future social mobility. There's no easy way to speak about inequalities that someone may face in the world. So I'm asking all of you, the ones who may be sitting at home, let's get uncomfortable. Let's talk about it. Let's open up the conversation. We're starting here, right here in this park, we're opening up. This is going to be a difference for WIS, hopefully. So maybe the next Black girl, the Black boy who finds himself walking down the hallway at their majority white high school doesn't feel so uncomfortable. Thank you everyone for coming today. And I also, if you aren't registered to vote, I have registrations in my bag. So I'll just be popping around. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Anissa Wormers. I graduated in 2019 and I'm currently at Boston College. And I'm honored to be here to speak at this event. For years, I have let people erase my voice, my truth, and my story. I am done allowing classmates and administration pretending that our district is perfect, thinking that racism and discrimination are things of the past. There's no silencing me now. Wissahickon School District showcases its community through a rose-colored lens. They claim to be a blue ribbon school that prides itself on diversity. Yet they have continuously shown that equity, awareness, and justice are the last things on their mind. I'm not Black, and I have many privileges because I am mixed. However, my experience has not been immune to moments that remind me that I'm different. White students are not asked by their peers if they are terrorists just because of their skin tone and their name. Teachers have no problem pronouncing and spelling the white students' names, yet they spend months guessing and mumbling through mine. Even though I am too Indian to be dateable, people don't hesitate to tokenize me to prove that they're not racist. Having my race guessed like a game show, fetishized, or told I'm not enough by classmates forced me to internalize all these negative thoughts about my identity. These comments only continued as I went to a predominantly white college and experienced microaggressions because of my race and my religion. I gained a sliver of perspective of feeling less than, and this issue impacts people of color, and specifically the Black and Hispanic communities. It's evident how racism and discrimination are swept under the rug. Throughout my time in Wissahickon, I cannot remember a history class where we discussed Black history in depth and for more than a week. Frankly, any type of non-European history was ignored. I was deprived of learning about different cultures, religions, and histories, including my own. Race was not mentioned until I took AP classes, which is pretty horrific if you ask me. And when race was discussed, white students remained silent when put face to face with the challenges students of color have to confront daily. And when they went into the hallways, their silence turned to complacency and internal prejudice. We cannot change the implicit biases from 2 symposiums and a reminder to not use the N-word from a white teacher. We are finally being exposed to hundreds of years of inequalities placed on Black individuals. Hearing these stories are privileges. Imagine living with a target on your back every day simply because of your skin color. The Black Lives Matter discussions have taught me how to be a better supporter of Black people and other people of color. If I learn about racism from social media more often than I have from my 13 years at Wissahickon, there's a clear issue. I am sharing my story today so Wissahickon can finally listen and act on behalf of their students of color. Many have expressed and will continue to express the issues surrounding racism and discrimination at this district. And we cannot be shying away from these issues, and we need to stand for what's right now. If Wissahickon wants to be a blue ribbon school, then make it a district where everyone really feels safe, included, and understood. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out today and showing your support. My name is Mithila Patel. I'm a former student of Wissahickon, and I graduated with the class of 2019, and I now attend Drexel University.
Wow.
I attended a different school district for kindergarten before I moved to WIS, and in kindergarten, I was the only student of color who attended that school district. One day, I was called into the classroom next to mine so that the teacher could compare her skin color with mine to describe to her students how my rights were limited because of my brown skin and hers were not. I had never felt more out of place. Coming to WIS, I still felt slightly out of place. WIS has tried to create an open, welcoming environment. However, it hasn't achieved that goal yet. Almost all of my teachers, friends, and peers call me by Mital, Mital, and subs would say Midal. I was given these Americanized pronunciations, and because I was naive when I received them, I just went with it. I allowed them to change my pronunciation, and WIS normalized that behavior. At a certain point, I started hesitating when trying to correct people and then eventually stopped correcting them altogether. This behavior should have never been normalized. Throughout elementary, middle, and high school, people would not pronounce my name right because they chose what was easier for them. It's not entirely their fault. It's also mine for feeling like I had to hide myself and be ashamed of who I was for the longest time, since I would be constantly judged for the way I look, what I wear, the Indian food I brought for lunch sometimes, and when I simply tried to be myself. Americanizing someone's name has a lifelong effect on them, and it's something I know I will carry for the rest of my life because that's the only way some people know how to identify me. It was only at the end of 8th grade and in the high school that a few friends and teachers put in the effort of learning how to pronounce my name correctly. And it was also in high school that I realized how I had been disrespecting my name and culture and how I allowed that to happen. WIS claims it prepares its students for college academically, but what about culturally? College has been a completely different experience. Most of the new friends I've made, professors and other peers, know how to pronounce my name correctly because they put in the effort of wanting to know how to say it correctly, even if it means they have to practice every time they see me. WIS has to teach its faculty, staff, and students culture and ethical maturity if it really wants its students to make a difference in the world. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It warms my heart to see the amount of people who made it out here today, and I'm glad that there are even more people watching this virtually. It gives me hope knowing that many of you care about the future of Wissahickon students and are here to show your support. However, I think we all know that being present isn't enough, and that is why we are all gathered here at Penland Park. It is time that we demand change from the Wissahickon School District and demand that they address racial inequalities because we can no longer accept their empty statements about diversity. For years, Wissahickon has claimed that they love their students of color and do everything to support them. They make these statements and at the same time are discouraging specifically Black students from reaching as high as non-Black students. We all go to the same school, we all have the same teachers, we all have the same mental capacity to learn, but we are not all treated the same. Growing up, I've seen Black students around me discouraged by their teachers and their peers because of the way they talk, the way they dress, and the music they like. None of those things would affect the way they learn until they are told that is wrong and that it makes them less than. These kids are told that they need to act white in order to succeed. Change the way you talk, change the way you dress, change the music you like, and then we will take you seriously as a student. None of these things should affect the value of a student's education. No student should be told that they need to act white in order to be valued. On the surface, it may not seem like a big deal, but kids are smart. They can see right through the things you say to them. They can tell when they are not accepted and when people don't believe in them. And unfortunately, this is why many Black students disidentify with school at a young age. It is time that we, specifically non-Black people, let go of our pride and reflect on any of our own inner racism that may exist. I think there is no shame in recognizing our flaws as long as we are actively trying to change our behavior. And while we are trying to better ourselves, we should also be calling out any racism we see in our day-to-day lives. Yes, it is uncomfortable, and it would be easier to not say anything at all. Racism to exist a lifetime for people of color. No longer jeopardize the future of children because we would rather stay silent, do what is uncomfortable, and address racism within the classroom.
Everybody. My name is Anna Skillum. I am a class of 2019 graduate. People may know me as having performed and competed in the spoken word poetry slam the years of 2017, 18, and 19. So today I'm going to perform a poem that I performed last year. That I think is really relevant today with some additions of what's.
Black people have always been sweating. Sweat. The droplets were our first taste of the finest jewelry we would ever get to wear. We sweat holy dew, baptize ourselves a hollow new life, and the church choir's songs knock on heaven's doors to let them know we'll be home soon. Not so long ago, in fields we sweat. We worked with our clients, nappy-headed divas lined in rows of crop. We sweat to perm heads of cotton, dug our digits into her hair to get out all the kinks. We had hundreds of customers a day, worked their scalps, and sang our piece in the sky the way fire's tongue stretches to lick the stars. But when we laid to rest in our salons, we dreamed of our fingers relaxed and free. We abandoned our shops. We danced as we flipped the signs and ventured home. We were sweating, panting as we reached the doors, but when we arrived, we came to find it wasn't our home. We had built the house, no doubt about it, but I think the owners installed new locks, so they left us outside for a little while longer. When the doorbell chimed, it almost sounded like a hymn, and we hummed a tune like the Pied Piper luring hope our way. And so it's been this way ever since. The new world became old, but the old ideas became new. Still we wait. Wait because we can see our grandparents' remains propped against the door, their alabaster bone, how time has gnawed at their beauty. This is the whitest they'll ever be, and yet they are still just a decoration. Their bodies stand as props to the American scheme and have become puppets for us to entertain ourselves and remind us it could be worse. So we sweat under the sweltering sun that heats up memories of heat-damaged hair. We start to dream the same dreams, and we sweat. For those that don't wake, that dream permanent dreams, our mother's eyes perspire. When we adorn ourselves in caskets like the finest silk, the hole in their hearts is just the waiting room for the lead that will kiss their skin. Not every shot is heard around the world, but it is felt in every melanin mother when she holds her baby closer to her chest, the shaky smile of Black boys greeting officers. A gunshot is just the heartbeat of Trayvon Martin, of Stephon Clark, of Philando Castile, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Dominique Remy Fells, Tawin Salau, Elijah McClain, and of every unarmed Black man, woman, child, human being in America that's life fades quietly in the noise of the media. We sweat with every tweet, with every thought and prayer, with every article, with every why God, with every commercialized, bobble-headed shaking and disappointment. We sweat because our bodies are arming themselves, but we only forge bullets to load their pistols. But above all, we sweat because we work. We fought to take root in better soil. We sweat to water our seeds and watch them soar higher above the house, so we don't even need to step inside. We'll be close enough to knock on heaven's doors ourselves. We'll tell them we home. And when the last beads are swept from our eyes, we'll dance. Heaven won't believe the way our bodies move and don't drop a single ounce of salt. The angels will wonder, why are Black people so good at dancing? What else would we do after 246 years in chains? Golf? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anya Johnson, and today I will be reading The Experiences. In order to ensure that all students, including those who may not feel comfortable speaking about their own experiences, have a platform, we created a space for students to anonymously share the discrimination they have faced and what improvements they would like to see be made within the district. In an effort to maintain the privacy of the parties involved, we will only be sharing the experiences that were submitted directly from students of color who have faced discrimination. Experience number 1. I've been in the district my whole education and went to Madison Avenue, Shady Grove, and up through the middle school and now the high school. I remember hearing that the Madison Avenue kids were collectively blamed by other elementary schools for bringing down test grades. It's important to remember that we were seen as more of the minority school, where many students, Hispanic, Latin, went. After moving to Shady Grove, I was told that it wasn't students like me that individuals were talking about. I've always been a pretty good student, so I wouldn't have thought much otherwise if I had not seen how other students of color were being treated. For example, Black boys in my class were constantly scolded at for little things and seen as angry and out of control. I specifically remember befriending and working with 2 Black boys in my class and being told by the teacher that I should probably work with other people. Experience number 2. While I was not directly in her class, a teacher explained in her history class that China was a highly uneducated nation and that Chinese people were all uneducated and poor. The insinuation that China and other Asian countries are backwards and uneducated, especially through the use of facts that are decades old, is highly offensive. This type of behavior and blatant prejudice is unacceptable, especially in a school with a large Asian population. Experience number 3. There have been numerous instances in which history teachers have referred to Vietnam as Indochina while teaching about the Vietnam War in their history classes. While I understand that French colonized Vietnam at the time, it doesn't mean Vietnam didn't have a proper name. It's extremely rude for educators to refer to the nation as Indochina, like my nation didn't have centuries of history and an entire language and culture prior to European colonization. Vietnam was never Indochina to Vietnamese people. It has always been Vietnam, and I was disgusted to see a teacher whom I respect refer to it by its name that European colonizers were on it. Experience number 4. Because I was quiet and Asian. There was one instance in which I overheard an individual say ching chong, and although I was upset by such words, I minimized my own experience by feeling upset at myself for thinking the individual did something wrong when they didn't direct anything at me. I shouldn't have hated myself for their actions, demonstrating how the general community normalizes racism so much that my innocent middle school self did not feel like there was anything wrong with their actions when there clearly was. Experience number 5. In middle school, a boy who was white targeted multiple Asian girls to be his romantic partner. He leaned into my friend's personal space and said, "Your hair smells really good," while also attempting to look up my skirt. Additionally, I was sent screenshots of a conversation between him and another boy, and of our race was made clear. I reported this to the counselor, but for some reason, the situation turned out to be that my group, in which the boy behaved, the school decided to call me into the counselor's office to talk to me about my mean behavior. Experience not super nerdy and weird, or as a hypersexualized brainless party animal, no in between. I would get a lot of compliments that, without fail, always had foreign Asian attached to the end. You're cool, foreign Asian. You're pretty, foreign Asian. You're chill, foreign Asian. But statements like these are just the tip of the iceberg. In addition, I was in a lot of higher level AP classes, but when I got B's and C's on exams, my teachers would talk to me like I was brainless when I still had an overall A average student. For example, I once received a 75% on a midterm, and my teacher in a degrading tone told me that I exceeded her expectations. When I didn't do my homework, I felt as though I was often reprimanded more harshly than my peers. I faced so much stereotyping at Wissahickon School District that I forced myself to suppress my personality to blend in because I was terrified of sticking out. I didn't get to know who I even was until I went to college and became comfortable in my own skin. At WIS, I feel like many of the Black students are targeted for unnecessary discipline. I'm a Black student, and while my first time really getting in trouble was not until my senior year, I have many Black friends that have been dealing with discipline from the school for actions that better job of helping students with the reason why they got the system does not help such students aim for a better future. Experience number 8. I'm Korean, and I have always been nervous to pack lunch from home because other kids tend to make culturally insensitive comments in elementary school just so I can fit in. I had the stereotypical pressure on me to be smart because I'm Asian. Never had an Asian teacher, which is shocking to me. Right before school closed this year, kids were making ignorant jokes claiming that all Asians have coronavirus. Some laughed, others stayed silent, but no one spoke up about it, including myself. Experience number 9. I have heard gay slurs used numerous times against LGBTQ+ students and generally in derogatory ways. Fellow students usually do not intervene or correct others when this happens because one instance that stands out was at a patch across the gym at another student during the national anthem. The administration never addressed this incident of hate on a school-wide level, and the student who yelled continuously used slurs in classes after this incident. Experience number 10. I told 3 different members of administration on multiple different occasions about multiple different students who were using racial slurs. I had evidence, photos, and videos, as well as other evidence shown to them by other students and friends of mine. There was very minimal punishment for every single one of these students. Obviously, not much was done considering they all graduated alongside myself and continued on to higher education without a problem. Someone threatened to lynch one of my Black friends, and the discipline he received was not enough. I've had counselors and teachers who refrained from encouraging Black students to take honors/AP classes and had told Black students they were unfit for prestigious colleges and universities. Experience number 11. 2 of my white friends would eat lunch in the library almost every day and were only asked to stop eating one time. Each time I ate with them, we were never stopped or monitored. However, when a student of color and my other friends were also people of color would eat in the library, we were being closely watched and told to go to the cafeteria to eat. While I understand that we are not allowed to eat in the library, the fact that the only 2 times I ate in the library with people other than my white friends, I was caught both times, made me think that I was caught because I was being watched more closely than my white friends due to the color of my skin. Experience number 12. There have been multiple times that I have heard white people say the N-word. Many students are not. A teacher once told me that Black History Month does not fit into the curriculum, so she was not going to teach it. Experience number 14, people standing for the national anthem. That's the polite thing to do and the correct way to do it. I'm completely horrified by this statement and believe it was incredibly inappropriate for an educator to say. Experience number 15. Although Wissahickon has a fairly diverse student body, there were many classes that lacked diversity, very uncomfortable in such environments, especially since I felt as though students were not very welcoming and talked only among themselves. Additionally, I have been stereotyped because of my race, hearing occasional assumptions and jokes that did not sit well with me. I witnessed people degrading my friends' accomplishments due to race as well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sasha Jason. I'm a student at Wissahickon High School and a rising senior this year. I'm also co-president of CASA, which is a club that focuses on the social and racial issues within our society and students of color. I've been a student in this district since I was in kindergarten, and I can truly say I've drawn a blank for the number of times I've experienced or witnessed racism at Wissahickon. When highly inappropriate comments are reported by students, they are never handled with the proper attention they deserve. Especially when it comes to social media issues, I've rarely seen students receive punishment for making offensive comments, even when photo or verbal evidence was provided, and this occurs often. I've been told, what part of Africa are you from? Or I'll only get into college because of affirmative action. I've had a classmate of mine send me a video link that justified the white people to say the M-word, and I've witnessed several students claim they have a pass to say racist comments because their friends said it was okay. Every day, I feel like I'm targeted in the hallways for potentially starting trouble or getting into fights. Similarly, in the hallway, many Black students, including myself, were constantly stopped or asked, where are you supposed to be, when we were simply minding our business. Microaggressions like these speak to the lack of cultural and racial awareness at our school, resulting in an unwelcoming educational environment for students like myself. Additionally, the implementation of mentoring study halls has not only failed to do its initial job of providing additional support to students who may need it, but it blatantly segregated students of color into separate classes. This year, CASA tried to include a 10-minute Black History Month lesson in every social studies class, but even that failed as interrupted with the curriculum, only 10 minutes. While we understand the time constraint on in-class activities, the lack of Black history taught within Wissahickon is incredibly disheartening, and many students can vouch for that. Even in the height of the rise of the death of George Floyd, a lesson plan was given to staff on how to conduct a civil conversation about the recent happenings to their students. From what I've concluded in my grade, only 2 AP classes, including mine, talked about the motivated murders, and that was it. For being at our school, but did not give them a chance to join that conversation. In terms of helping the issue at hand, I've heard of this idea in students
Hello, everybody. My name is Santo Carbo. I'm a rising senior at Wissahickon High School. And what I want to talk to you today is a club at Wissahickon called CASA. As Sasha just mentioned, she is co-president of the club CASA, and I am co-vice president alongside Frank Tucker, who will be speaking next. I got involved with CASA near the end of 2018. Every now and again, CASA has big parties, and a friend of mine who was in my math class invited me to come to one. So that Thursday, I come to the cafeteria after school. I had a great meal, and I made a ton of new friends. I was really excited to come back to the meeting 2 weeks later. So 2 weeks later, I come back after school, and instead of having empanadas, this time we had a conversation about racism in academic institutions earlier that month. But in spite of all that, I just sat in a circle of chairs and listened. I heard stories about just the appalling experience that my classmates had to go through, and it really showed me the underbelly of Wissahickon. They say you can only learn when you're outside of your comfort zone, and I was nothing if not uncomfortable on that day. To this day, after being in CASA for a year and a half, one of those years being an officer, I still get a little uncomfortable at every meeting. There's always a moment where a student will tell a story or will talk about a historical event or the legal system, and I'll get a pit in my stomach. And sometimes I feel angry. I get angry at the complacency of people like me who can sit idly by without consequence while our fellow man is assaulted. But in spite of all this, I leave every meeting feeling optimistic. I know that discomfort was necessary for my growth as an ally, and I'm equipped with a better understanding of the people who live in the same world as I do. At CASA, I've learned history that hasn't been taught to me in any Wissahickon class, like the Stonewall riots and the first Black billionaire. I've discussed current events that I normally would have never heard about, like the defacing of an Emmett Till memorial or Byron Allen's acquisition of the Weather Channel. But most importantly, I've gotten insight into the lives of many different people that I see every day. I know that we've all been mainly limited to social media activism for obvious reasons, and part of the helplessness a lot of allies like myself feel is due to the fact that we have limited options at the moment. I'd like to conclude by letting everyone know that once WHS's doors are open, whenever that may be, CASA's will be too. We'd love to have each and every one of you show up to talk or to listen so that we may build a better unified Wissahickon, because after all, mi casa, su casa. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Frank Tucker, and I'm a rising senior at Wissahickon High School. And as stated before, I am also co-vice president of the CASA Club at WIS. Now, first off, I just want to thank Jantica and Leanne for organizing this event today and for allowing me and my peers to speak our minds. We are all living through a time where there is so much uncertainty and so much confusion surrounding us, and it's hard to understand what to do and how to do it. Many of you don't know this, but my dream in life is to be on Broadway. And for almost 7 years now, I have had the opportunity to perform in many productions, and I've had the pleasure of playing numerous lead roles in some of those shows. I've had the opportunity to play roles such as Ren McCormick in Footloose and Sam Carmichael in Mamma Mia. Now, I emphasize the fact that I have played leads in shows, not to brag, but to show that a Black male can also play parts popularized by white men. And that's what I want to talk about today, the stigma. For there to be true change in our school system and this world, we need to begin breaking down both the stigmas and stereotypes that are placed before both people of color and African Americans. One of CASA's presidents touched on the topic before, but for the past 3 years at Wissahickon, I have sat through countless history classes that merely discuss thousands and thousands of years of white success at the expense of the enslavement of African Americans. Not once over these 3 years have I learned about people such as Josephine Baker, Malcolm X, or Madam C.J. Walker. Why does my education on Black history end with Martin Luther King Jr. and Harriet Tubman? To improve our school system in regards to racism, we need to teach our students not just about white success in history, but also the success of Black people and people of color, because by teaching students just about the hardships and constant struggle of Black people and people of color caused by white people in American history can lead to members of our white student body to feel as if they have power, aka white privilege, resulting in instances where the N-word is being written on the bathroom walls, or white students saying the N-word in casual conversations with their friends. Through my time in CASA, especially this past year, I have heard some bizarre and horrific stories. from incidences in the classroom to incidences on social media. And the one question I seem to always ask is, why are these issues brought up to a higher authority to be handled? And then I realized that it's because the higher authorities in place don't know how to and have not successfully handled past incidences regarding racism at WIS the proper way. Our school system needs to realize that by teaching its white students that they can get away with racist actions, that it can ultimately result in future murders such as those of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. This lack of discipline also teaches Black students and students of color that it's not okay for them to speak up for themselves because they won't be heard. And if they are heard, it won't be handled properly. And until that changes and the school system starts listening and taking the proper action despite fear or backlash, there won't be growth in our school system, and the WIS nation we also cherish and love won't evolve to something greater. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Miles. I'm going to Temple this fall. Just graduated last month. Thanks. So, in my 9 years as a student enrolled at the Wissahickon School District, there have been many occurrences of racial prejudice that I've either been a witness of or have encountered myself. And I do not believe that the district is doing enough to be actively anti-racist. I don't believe that there's a lot of faculty and administration that are, blatantly being racist to us, but we do need to do more in terms of being, actively against racism. We're living in a district where racial stereotyping and prejudice is so normalized that when someone is offended by it, it means that they cannot take a joke, that they're sensitive, that they're soft. But enduring racial prejudice throughout years of schooling and coming out of the other end successful and educated is not the behavior of someone I would call soft or someone I'd imply as being weak. We as a district have made the mistake that many make, believing that just because not everyone is running around violently preaching anti-Blackness, that we don't participate in racist behavior. Racism takes many forms. From kids who love hip hop music, but believe they're superior to their Black neighbors and classmates, or student sections who stereotype Black teams during games by chanting about how they're fatherless or how they're poor. Black students are antagonized and portrayed as adults much older than their actual age. And when they make mistakes, it's never a mistake. It's no secret that Black students are widely punished much more than white students on an average. And Wissahickon is guilty of that. It's time that we finally address our contribution, and that we become proactive to circumstances that enable racism along our hallways. No longer should we have to run the same race with many more obstacles in order to just be respected on the same degree as our white peers. We shouldn't have to be the best of the best to get a chance. This starts with education from a young age about Black culture and Black people, and teaching, not just in schools, but at homes as well, that Black children and children of color are not limited to what the world says about them or how the world is prepared to handle them. And recognize that many of our achievements of students of color are only limited to how the community nurtures them. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elita Lassiter. I'm a part of the class of 2020. I'm attending American Musical Dramatic Academy in Manhattan this fall to study musical theater. I was a member of CASA, section leader for Wissahickon Camerata, and I was the founder of For the Love of Black Girls, a club that was founded on the purpose of building a sisterhood and a safe place for Black girls in this district to express themselves. As a student at Wissahickon, I felt isolated a lot of the time. Being the only Black kid in a class will take its toll on you. I hid because I didn't want to give people the impression that I was the angry Black girl. I once had another student tell me, well, you're not like the other Black girls. They're all loud and obnoxious and talk all ghetto. Or hearing white boys tell me, I'm not into Black girls, but you're the exception. This is some students' idea of a compliment. As a Black girl at Wissahickon, I also noticed Black girls get dress coded for wearing the same things as their white peers. We are seen as more adult and developed from a young age, which in itself is extremely disturbing. As a student at Wissahickon, I noticed a lack of discipline for students that make and say racially insensitive comments and say racial slurs. Slurs are thrown around like confetti. I have reported instances of students saying the N-word with video evidence, and they were not reprimanded. One of my friends was threatened to be lynched by a white student, and he received no punishment. A prime example of when I looked like the angry Black girl. As a student at Wissahickon, I've witnessed teachers making racially insensitive comments, making jokes about stereotypes pertaining to Black people, then patting me on the shoulder as if I was supposed to find that humorous. Being a part of the school theater company, I've noticed that there has yet to be a Black lead role. I noticed that there's a lack of representation and diversity when there are Black students who are equally as talented and just wind up being typecasted. As a student at Wissahickon, I was told that my natural hair looked weird and was ugly. When I overcame the complex that was given to me and decided to wear my natural hair, it's been grabbed in the knuckle and touched by random people with the excuse, oh, I just wanted to see what it felt like. My hair is a part of my identity, and I was conditioned to conform and dumb myself down to fit European beauty standards. It wasn't until my first time having a Black female teacher that I understand it was important for me as a Black woman to embrace my hair in its natural state. I lost my sense of self-worth. I grew and became extremely depressed. I cried nightly, and the day that you cry over your skin color and how your life would be easier if you were a little lighter is the day that you know pain. As a student at Wissahickon, I learned how incredibly difficult it is being Black, and I'm willing to be that angry Black woman if that means that people will begin to listen.
Good afternoon, I'm Eric. I'm a part of the graduating class of 2020, and this fall I'll be attending LaSalle University. Growing up, I was pretty isolated. Both my parents worked, so from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., I was at my grandmother's house. Keep in mind, they were still fairly new to the American culture. Their speech wasn't well, it was hard for them to pronounce and articulate words, and they didn't feel qualified to teach me in preparation of school. So they turned on the TV. And PBS Kids was my teacher until kindergarten. In no way am I trying to bash my grandparents. If anything, I'm grateful. It's because of them that I am so in tune with my culture. It's because of them that I know how to speak both Vietnamese and Cantonese. They, along with the rest of my family, built up my personality, my identity. Little did I know that attending public school would try to strip me of that. About a year or two later, I was either in first or second grade, the kids in my class were talking about religion. The most common answer was, I'm Christian. Then the kids turned and asked me. For once, the question wasn't, what kind of Asian are you? Or what are you eating? But you can't win them all. I remember this so vividly. We were at the teacher's table, and I remember just a feeling of panic rushing over my body. I knew what religion I practiced, Buddhism, but I got scared and I told them I was Christian. Then the kids would ask me what church I went to, and I just leached a name of a church that a kid said before me. And thank God that they didn't ask me why they never saw me at church, because if they did, I wouldn't even know what to say. Oh, that was my religion, Christianity. That was my religion for most of my academic career until we learned about other religions and cultures. Until I was finally comfortable with saying, hey, Buddhism, that's my religion. I was born in this country, and yet I still felt foreign. I felt the need to be a true American, a traditional American. I don't want that for any generation, for any of my younger brothers.
To feel silenced just to be accepted. So everyone in the crowd and at home, you're participating in this event because you want change. Some people think that change comes naturally, that growth comes as the years go. Of course, that's true to a certain extent, but there needs to be like a catalyst. We need to be willing to educate ourselves, to reflect, to learn from our mistakes, and speak up. If you want something, if we as a community want something, we have to fight for it. We have to defend it with all of our strength, nurture it with all of our love. We're united by this cause. We are one. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for everyone who made an effort to be here today, because definitely a lot of touching stuff that we'll be talking about and things that people have already shared. And I want to say the best way to solve an issue is to address that there is one in the first place. So again, with every one of you guys being here today, that really helps push that agenda. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gabriela Adrianza, and I have been in the Wissahickon School District since 2nd grade, and I'll be attending Drexel University this fall. If there is one thing that I can say is that I'm extremely appreciative of the education that Wissahickon has given me, but that does not mean there are some issues that need to be addressed. My sophomore year, I was a part of CASA, and during one of our meetings, we were talking about the education system and how we felt that Wissahickon prepared us. One of the questions that I had asked during that time was how many students were required or recommended by their teacher to take AP or honors classes. Less than half the students rose their hand. I followed that question up by asking how many of you either overrode that or took that teacher's recommendation. More than half the students in that room rose their hand. I then followed it up by asking how many of you have A's and B's in those classes right now. All those students kept their hands up. I think it's important to address that every single student has potential, and sometimes that does get overlooked at our school. And the following year is when I really understood that. As many students who are here know, pre-calc is an extremely difficult class at our school, and unfortunately, it was definitely a class that I myself struggled with. Countless amount of times I have gone to a counselor saying that I do not think I was ready for that class, but I never wanted to drop it. I wanted to continue with it because I'm not someone who quits. So I would stay after school almost every single day, teaching myself lessons over and over again, or meeting with a student. My teacher did not know that, and when I brought it up to my counselor, she said, "Well, keep trying. We have stars. We have other things you can do. Maybe even look into having a tutor." The year progressed. I was still not doing well in that class, but I still wanted to continue with that class, and I did. Towards the end of the school year, I was nearly failing, but never did I want to drop that class, and I ended up passing after being told I should look into taking summer school classes. The important thing with that is no matter how many people will tell you you can't do something, your potential is what matters most. I think that's something that a lot of teachers need to realize about some of their students who they don't always look at and say, hey, you can do this. So thank you very much again for everyone being out here, and that's just one thing I wanted to share.
How y'all doing? My name is Devin Boatwright. I am a student of Wissahickon High School. I transferred to Wissahickon when I was in the 3rd grade. I always felt like the school was not inclusive to Black students. That's how I feel, and that's how I feel. And no student should ever feel like this. But the truth is, some of us do. I've seen the N-word written on the bathroom walls. I've seen kids comment the N-word anonymously over social media. I heard inappropriate comments from students and teachers. It's frustrating to have to fight for equal and fair treatment. For example, my parents had to step in to help me not get an assault charge from a misunderstood situation because the staff wouldn't listen. Reporting racial conflict to the staff, but nothing happening. And then having to hear fraud statements that Wissahickon doesn't have racism. When I've lived this every day, but yet we're supposed to be one of the top school districts. When it feels like hell over here. I've been in this district for 7 years. They cracked down on bullying and brought in guest speakers and started Rachel's Challenge, which is a bullying program, but it doesn't seem like they want to crack down on making Black students inclusive. Where are all the programs for inclusiveness? I wrote a letter to my principal, superintendent, which by the way, do you see any of them here? Because I sure don't. Board members, Wissahickon School District, superintendent and some board members of Wissahickon School District addressing the issues we face. The letter included direct quotes from students who wanted their voices to be heard. The majority of us students are hurting when it comes to racism in this school district, and we want change. As a response, we were giving a letter stating that the district is going to make changes in the teaching staff, conduct reviews over our curriculum, and embark on sustained multi-year culture plan. It's been a month since that happened, and we're awaiting the district's detailed plan. But if we're all here, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. I can speak for the majority of the students when I say, we don't want your words, we want action, we want change.
Prior to my graduation last month, I had been in Wissahickon School District for 13 years, ever since kindergarten, and I remember feeling a variety of emotions on graduation day. After all, Wissahickon has heavily shaped the individual who I am today. From the rigorous academics that helped me develop my passions to the dedicated staff who have taught me lessons that expand far beyond the four walls of the classroom, there are many reasons why I'm extremely grateful to be a Wissahickon graduate today. However, following my graduation, I realized the other impacts that Wissahickon has had on me. Due to my upbringing there, I feel a large disconnect with my culture now. After facing numerous microaggressions, I subconsciously adopted the ideology that it is better to fit in with the white kids instead of enduring the embarrassment that came with embracing my Indian culture. I was 5 when my white teacher pulled me aside, remarking that none of my white classmates could pronounce my name, suggesting that I change the pronunciation of it to make it easier for them. Soon, the beautiful Jontka became Jontika, and I never heard anyone outside of my family say my name properly again. I was 8 when I shared a cultural experience with my classmates at Show and Tell, only to be immediately made fun of and mimicked. Instead of teaching my classmates to be respectful of all experiences, my teacher simply moved on, telling the class to calm down. I never shared another cultural experience at Show and Tell again. I was 10 when my friends came over to my house for my first sleepover. I proudly showed them my mandir, a Hindu temple, only for my white friends to call it scary and frightening. I never showed my friends my mandir again. I was 14 when I first heard a classmate of mine imitate Indian accents while pretending to be a Dunkin' Donuts worker or 7-Eleven. I was 16 when my white English teacher wrote, "Let's work on toning down your anger," on an essay detailing the detriments of cultural appropriation, much of which was derived from my own personal experiences. I never wrote about my own cultural identity again. I was 18 when I graduated from Wissahickon and finally realized the negative influence that these experiences have had on me because of how normalized they are within our district. And now I vow to never let anyone make me feel ashamed of my cultural identity again. So that concludes the part of the program where we have speakers. And before we move on to the allyship segment, I just want to let you know that coming up, there's an open floor in which current and former Wissahickon students in the audience can voice their experiences with discrimination if you feel comfortable doing so. We will be limiting the open floor to recent graduates that were under the current district administration, just to follow the purpose of this platform today. So if you're considering speaking during this section, we just wanted to give you an opportunity to think about what you want to say and let you know what's coming up. But now I'll give you Jasmine.
Hey everyone, I'm Jasmine Hahn. I graduated with the WIS class of 2020 and I'll be headed to UU Chicago in the fall. I just want to start this off by saying that in no way am I the expert on non-Black allyship, and I'm not going to pretend to be. To be honest, allyship and this level of activism is fairly new to me, even if it shouldn't be. As I first got started, I saw a lot of these master lists of just petitions and books and email templates. Oh, sorry. And email templates and just links and links and links and links. Honest. So in my head, I tried to condense it down to 3 things to constantly do that are necessary parts of healthy allyship. Learning, doing, and correcting. So basically asking myself, what should I learn? What can I do? And what do I still need to correct? So let's start with that first one. Learning is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful tools that we have. And I think it's a huge reason why we're gathered here today. Not to just like rename a street or cancel the next person on Twitter, but to reform a school. When you change the education to be more inclusive, you also change the minds of the next generation of activists and parents and, fingers crossed, elected officials. But while we wait for our educational systems and institutions to catch up, because let's be honest, College Board is not exactly known for its stunning efficiency, there's a lot that we can do to I'm sure all of us have seen the list online. It's like 13, how to be an anti-racist, white fragility, so you want to talk about race, Toni Morrison if you're feeling adventurous. So those are great places to start, and it's great that we live in a time where there are so many mediums to learn. If you're feeling overwhelmed, grab some friends, start a discussion group, book club, talk about the 13th Amendment over virtual Sunday brunch. But the biggest thing, no matter how you go about it, is to actually make time to try and learn something. So Lauren Michelle Jackson, who teaches at Northwestern, has a fantastic article on anti-racist reading lists that starts with something like, book recs feel good to get and they feel good to give out. But someone at some point has to get down to the business of actually reading. Let that someone be you. Now, I did come to the devastating realization early on that simply reading a book will not change 400 years of systemic racism. It turns out that we have to actually do something about it, which is that second thing. Fortunately, you guys came out here today, or you're watching from home, so it looks like we've come to the same conclusion. With action, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that somehow everything has to and can be done by everyone. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because we've all got our unique skills and resources that are unique to us. So before I step up, I find it helpful to ask, well, realistically, what do I have the ability to achieve? And where are my skills and resources most needed and most helpful? So for instance, if you or a family member is at risk right now, please do not go out and protest. If you're running a fever and have a persistent dry cough, please do not go out and protest. If you are an artist, like the brilliant Catherine Kennedy who designed the programs that some of you are holding right now, your skills can be used in a different way than a great organizer, like the students that brought us here today, or a lawmaker, or a school administrator. I also think that it's important for us to think about where we're directing our efforts and our rhetoric. So, like, before I post online, I always have to think about, well, to some degree, talking to 1,000 friends that already agree with me still does less than convincing a single voter that doesn't agree with me. So for those of us that do have the ability to debate this stuff without getting hurt, and I do recognize that not all of us can because of our circumstances, consider having as civil a discussion as possible with someone in your life that isn't on your side. And then at the end of the day, there is something that all of us 18 or older can do in November: vote. So awesome. We've read a book and we've voted and hopefully done some other stuff in between. The last thing that I think about is a little bit less of a concrete action and more of a mindset, correcting. In a conversation that is constantly evolving like this one, it's natural that all of us will make mistakes, and it's important for us to be open to making those and changing our behaviors in the future. And in turn, being okay with pointing out where other people mess up in a healthy and forgiving way. In my life, I have to think about why it took me so long to become this actively involved. I have to confront the simple truth that I didn't take action until everyone around me did. And I have to be aware that I made those mistakes because I have the privilege to decide that activism isn't worth it for me. Not everyone had that privilege back in 2013 when Black Lives Matter first started, and not everyone has it now. But for now, I know moving forward that I should push myself to be part of these movements, even if I have to be one of the first. This is a lot to think about, but I also think it's important to note that allyship is meant to be is meant to be a process that takes effort. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not a passive role, but an active one. And we need active efforts in order to make change in this movement. If anyone's got any questions, I will totally be sticking around after this. Disagreements and concerns, I will also be around. Please be nice to me. If you want a less overwhelming list of cool resources to check out, a couple of friends and I have been keeping up a spreadsheet of resources we can personally vouch for and would love to talk about, so I'd be happy to drop that link. Thank you to all of our incredible speakers today, and thank you to you guys for coming out today or watching from home. I really do love this school community, and I'm so proud of this student body, and I believe in our capacity for change. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anthony Lawrence. For those of you who know me, I graduated from Wissahickon in 2018, and I now attend University of Richmond, and I'm class of 2022, accounting major with a concentration in economics and a minor in French. And yeah, thank you. And I am an example of what happens when you pour into a Black student and empower them to go to the maximum of their potential. Just to give a little bit of context, it's not about me, but I am a Newman. And so what that means is that people in Ambler may know me, or people in Ambler may know my family. And looking back at my history, my brother, my cousins, my uncle, my grandma, my mother, my entire family went to Wissahickon. And one of the things that I know from my grandma is that she doesn't want to go anywhere. You know, she got on an airplane one time, has only been to Connecticut or Richmond, Virginia, and I don't even know what's in Connecticut, but I know that, you know, the borders are greater than that. And so I kind of think to myself, what would have happened if she would have been pushed more in high school to do the things that made her uncomfortable or made her reach her maximum potential? And so today I'm not here to talk about myself and my experiences, but as an ally, I'm here to kind of tell you what we should take on in our heart and the emotion of love. And so we must establish a heart of love. Now, love is hard, and much of what we learn about love comes from the annals of society and is rooted in those who care about us growing up, as well as teenage romance movies such as Grease or High School Musical. Society teaches us that we find love only romantically in our teen years or when we get married or even in friendships, but I find this untrue. There is a love in the eyes of a newborn baby when its mother went to its mother, and love in the care a painter takes to the canvas. But one thing society doesn't teach us often is that love is a choice, deliberate in nature and often seen within action and neglected with inaction. And so before I expect you to take this newfound definition of love as a choice to heart, I suppose you're asking, what is love? Well, I'm glad you asked, Wisdom Community. Now, I'm no expert, but a wise 2,000-year-old man named Paul once told me that love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, boastful, proud, or rude. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't seek itself or anger others. It isn't easily provoked or hold ridiculous grudges. And one of the most prevalent ideas of love is that we're anguish, but fights to see the truth come to light, up or loses faith, is consistently hopeful and strong enough through every circumstance, not just the ones we're comfortable with. Wow. As you hear that list, I imagine it can be overwhelming, but certainly not impossible. A lot of ignorance is simply the choice not to learn or shift from your pre-established regardless if it's LGBTQIA plus member of the community, annoying co-worker. In the context of this event, love looks like pouring into and never giving up. For those who may be ignorant to more than just the Black Lives Movement, which I'm guilty of, what does love look like to you? Is love complacent? Is it stuck in its ways? Or is it open to new information and willing to hear those who are hurting? As humans, it will take copious amounts of time to let go of the privilege, not with intent to respond, but intent to empathize, care about, and more importantly, understand. As I begin to close, I remind you that kindness, patience, unselfishness, humility, lack of envy are all few words to describe love. If we as people decide to keep these values at the forefront, it is hard to imagine anger, ignorance, hatred to get in our way. Anger, ignorance, and hatred get in the way when we become impatient, selfish, focused on preserving our pride. And when empathy, kindness, and understanding in promise or in action is no longer our focus. I apologize for being cliche, but what would a good speech be without a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. quote? He once said, "Man must evolve for all human conflict, a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation." The foundation of such a method is love. So I encourage you to not let the old way you've grown into love to hinder you from growing in love. As you go back to your home offices, churches, and universities, don't only think, what can I watch on Netflix next week? Because the office will always be there. But think, what must I sacrifice in order to practice love daily? Is it time, money, energy, power, privilege, opinions? When the election comes around, when you get passed up for a promotion, when you feel disrespected or misunderstood, will you choose love, empathy, understanding, and kindness? Or will you choose anger, destruction, and pride? And trust me, there are definitely times when anger is our right response. Like when my Black brothers and sisters are murdered by police unjustly, or to a more relatable note, when that ugly sibling takes what you marked in the refrigerator. I've had it happen to me many times. But it's all about our response. And we have to make sure that anger isn't the immediate response that we have, but understanding is. Remember what I said before, love is a choice. Just because it is hard does not mean it is impossible. Practice it, and I promise you, you will end each day better than when you started. This advice isn't just for you, but the generations of this community to come, who will look to us as examples. And so, with my final words, I want to let you know that for those who don't feel loved, listened to, or understood, I hear you, and I love you. We will reshape this community as long as we continue to choose love. Thank you, and God bless.
So then we just have the open floor, and then we're going to go into steps for future improvement. If anyone is interested in taking advantage of the open floor, you can come up now, but for now we just have a first volunteer. So I'm going to introduce Victoria, but if you're interested, you can just come up by this beach umbrella.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I graduated this past month and I'll be attending Yale University in the fall. And basically, WSAHICN has shaped my perspective and a lot of my passions in a really positive way. But a lot of this has brought to my attention sort of my first experiences when coming to the district, because I first transferred here when I was in 3rd grade. And every day, at least for the first few months, I would proudly pack for lunch whatever my mom gave me. And this would often include kin, which is dried seaweed, and rice. Yogurutsu, which is that yogurt drink that's featured in All the Boys I've Loved Before, and Korean grapes. And these were all staples of my family as a Korean household. But a lot of my white friends would make fun of me for eating the food that I did and basically calling it disgusting. And then eventually, about halfway through 3rd grade, I sort of asked my parents if I could just move on to the school meal plan instead, because I was so tired of having people sort of judge me by the food that I ate. And to this day, I don't hold any grudges against those people, because obviously that happened in 3rd grade. But I also do recognize that I feel as though it's important for this district as a community to expose kids to other cultures as early as possible, just because to this day I still feel ashamed to hear my mom's broken English whenever I'm in a predominantly white store or neighborhood. And I still feel ashamed to pack Korean food for lunch whenever I go somewhere, whether it's due to the smell or its appearance or whatever. And ultimately, I just hope that as a community, we can sort of grow and learn to accept other students' cultures from as early on as age as possible. Thank you.
Okay, then I think we're just going to move on to the steps for future improvement. Wait. Oh, perfect.
Good afternoon. I know it's hot and I'm not going to be long. My name is Watana Epps. 1977, I graduated from WSAHICN. My 2 kids graduated from WSAHICN. My grandkids are now going to WSAHICN. The same problem that my mom had with my brother and I going to school and being targeted because we're Black, we're having now. The only thing different, my mom wasn't having them say, okay, my brother was a football player. He was flunky math. She pulled him off the team. Well, then immediately they want to tutor. Say, oh, he'll be okay. She said he'll be off the team until I see some grades going up, because they were more worried about their football than they were my brother's education. I'm gonna give you another scenario. My son is 34. When he was at middle school, one quick thing, he was sitting at the lunch table, and this white boy was playing with his food. Now, mind you, the aides were all standing around. They had to see it. They were playing with his food. So he got up, took his soda, and poured on this young fella. I get a call. Your son needs to stay after school because he did whatever. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. When there 2 people? She said, yeah, we're going to investigate. I said he will not take any punishment until the investigation is over. She said, I'll call you. By the time she was in her meeting it out, I was at the office. I said, how'd it go? She said, they're both going to get detention. And I was okay with that. But if I was a parent that wasn't involved and knew my rights, only my son would have been the one who had that detention. All I say, parents, black parents, white parents, multicultural parents, make sure you know your rights when it comes to your kids. Because everything they tell you is not all right. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ellie Zero. I'm a recent graduate of Wissahickon High School, class of 2020. And I don't want to take up time that could be used for someone else who has a story that is as relevant. And it's not just relevant, it's perpetually important. But Wissahickon School District isn't just bad for students of color. It is bad for students who are queer or identify as LGBTQIA+. And I went to 3 elementary schools. The first one was Friend Select in Philly, and it was awesome. And then I moved to Connecticut, and I got slapped for being Jewish, and there was no students of color in school. And then I moved here, and it was insane. It was so different. It was so much better. And then in 8th grade, well, in 7th grade, I came out as bisexual. And the amount of times I heard the F slur, if I had a nickel for every single time, I'd be a millionaire. I could pay to fix, and I'm not. And in 8th grade, I participated in the Day of Silence, which is supposed to be silent, supposed to be respected, to recognize those who cannot come out for fear, discrimination, and hatred. So I did it in 8th grade, and these kids made a game. Who could get me to talk first? Who could say the worst thing? Who could say the most offensive thing to make me angriest, to make me talk first? It was a game to them. My discrimination, my fear was a game. And as I went through high school, I wanted to believe it was better. I begged, I wanted to believe it was better. And then every single year, there was something that happened that made me know that it was all an act. That every time that every single person discussed with a teacher what it meant to them, that we were so diverse. It was all an act. In every single way. And food thrown at me on a school bus with slurs being said. I got people telling me that I didn't look Jewish, so I was okay. I can't begin to imagine how those issues of discrimination that I've experienced would be increased tenfold if I was a person of color. But I think it's important to recognize that there's so much else that those school districts can do to condemn those people who use hate speech like it's a fun game. Thank you.
So hi, I'm on.
You seem to have lost them.
I thought it was just me, but you lost them too, Ron?
Yep, disappeared. Their little square disappeared.
Yeah,
Okay.
the visual and the audio. Not
I
there.
lost it too.
So how long do we sit here?
I wonder if we can log back in or.
All right, sorry, real quick. So there's a chat also going on in the YouTube, and basically I've been kind of conversing with letting them know when Zoom drops, and there's a student who said they're working on getting it back up now.
Oh, great. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Joe is there also, and I've been texting him and letting him know what's going on, but he's in the crowd, so he can't do much.
With the administration. Support the students, and we want to let you guys.
You're back. But the sound sucks.
Right? Ambler is in our name, so we're here forever, right? And we want you to hold us accountable for that. We will continue to work with the superintendent and the principal to make these things come to life. Thank you for the time. Thank you to all the students for the courage to come up here today. But let's start work and let's start working tomorrow, okay? Thank you.
Does that mean it's over?
A Wissahickon High School 2018 alum, and I currently attend MIT. And I was the president of.
I think there's also like a solution section that's supposed to be coming up at some point.
So he's there.
She gave my father and I kisses and long hugs, though she seemed upset. In addition to my mother's mood, I heard it again, and they both started to worry me. My father told my mother that he had a knife with him, but he was shot from approximately 15 feet away. The dash cam footage that was found shows him running away from police cars that were chasing him. I kept thinking about it, and at dinner later that evening, my mother brought it up again. She said, the streets of Chicago are filled with protesters. And finally, my curiosity peaked. Mom, who is Laquan McDonald and what happened to him? I asked. My mother and father exchanged concerned looks that could make anyone fear what was coming next. What have you heard about him, son? My father asked. I heard that he was shot a lot of times and that the police didn't want people to know. Again, my parents talked to each other without saying a word. Why was he shot? Why are so many people angry? I said. My father touched my thigh and said, son, your mother and I have something to explain to you. A long time ago, some people brought our great grandfather and lots of people like him over from Africa to America. That great grandfather and his family had a lot of work that they didn't want to do. However, one day they were relieved of that work. Once they were freed, they tried to live regular lives like everyone else in this country. Sadly, doing that wasn't so easy. It did not happen. Some of the other people felt like Black people shouldn't be treated the same as everyone else. So what happened, I asked. Eventually, a man named Dr. Martin Luther King and a bunch of other people worked hard to make America a better place for everyone. My father continued. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here in this house living like this. And unfortunately, some people still currently have bad feelings because of that. Bad feelings like what? My parents both seemed troubled by the question I asked, as if they didn't know what to say. Son, you're Black. My mother replied. We always have been and we always will be. But us having dark skin isn't what solely makes us Black. Son, think of our society as one big race from start to finish. Everyone is given shoes to run in, but not everyone is given the same shoes. Some people are given the top-notch premium running shoes, while other people like us are given shoes that are twice as heavy. We can still manage to finish the race in them, but it's twice as hard. Unfortunately, some people will even look at us funny for wearing the only shoes we were given. That's not fair, I said dizzily. No, it's not, she agreed, but that hasn't stopped us and it never should. In addition to getting cool shoes, these people have other advantages, my dad included. During the race, the advantaged people can look up on the big Jumbotron and see so many people that look just like them. Having someone that looks like you and understands you, represents you in front of everyone, is more important than you can understand right now. Also, if someone like us and one of the advantaged people both get pulled aside by a race official, the other people don't have to worry about their skin being the reason why. Sadly, some people still don't like or feel comfortable around Black people, just as much as when Dr. Martin Luther King was around. They have bad feelings. As a result of this, sometimes people like us get treated unfairly just because our skin is darker. So what does this all mean, Dad? And what does Laquan McDonald have to do with any of it? I questioned. Laquan McDonald is a victim of our natural-born disadvantage, my father answered. His death was a result of a combination of hostility, hatred, and uneasiness towards him because he was Black. It has caused some people to stand up and protest for justice. No one deserves to die, and now there is an empty seat at this family's dinner table and a little more sadness in the hearts of people across the country. However, son, my father remarked, if you remember anything from this talk, remember this. Even though some people in this world don't like us because we're Black, we are equal to everyone else in this world in every way. This is what being Black is, son. It's realizing that you have heavier shoes and dealing with it. It's realizing that someone like you may not be on the Jumbotron, but not letting it stop you from running. It's recognizing and understanding the fact that some people will not like you just because you're Black. Being Black is having this conversation with you, son. All of this, all at once, made me feel overwhelmed, and I began to cry. Oh, son, why are you crying? My mother said, devastated. This is really scary, Mom, I cried. It's okay, son. You're my tough guy, my father said, embracing me. Now it's past your bedtime, so how about you head on up and get ready for bed? Okay, I said, wiping away my tears. Once I got to the stairs, I went up with a little less energy than usual, brushed my teeth with a little less vigor, put on my pajamas with a little less hurry,
and you could probably say flash a few times before I got into bed and went to sleep, not quite as excited for the next day. That story was in memory of Laquan McDonald, who was fatally shot by police officers in 2014. I just like to end by saying, now is the time for anti-racist action and anti-racist change. Sitting by and not being racist, it doesn't work. We have to actively fight racism in this country because we know that it's prevalent. And I hope my story was able to resonate with you in some way. It's not a perfect depiction of what it means to be Black in America, but I know that it is at least one boy's story. So thank you.
Hi again, everyone. My name's Anna. I graduated class of 2019, and one note I wanted to make about Wissahickon School District's commitment to anti-racism, if that's something that they so choose, is lifting up Black creatives. I go to Northwestern University for film, and it's a PWI, and I am one of the few Black and Black women in my classes. And it's really sad to see because at Wissahickon in the film program, I met a lot of interesting people, and some of the friends that you've seen here were a part of it too, who are really creative and have so much potential. And it was always shied away by, oh, well, they're not doing well academically in XYZ classes. While having a foundation in these things is very important, I felt like my creative passions during the college admissions process was kind of a little bit ignored, and it was more focused on how I was a well-rounded student. And I just wanted to say that being anti-racist and supporting Black creatives doesn't mean having people of color, especially Black creators, fit your narrative. It's helping them write their own. And that's all I wanted to say. Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Caroline Marta. I'm a graduate of class of 2018. I just want to thank everyone today for sharing their stories, but I want to serve this as a reminder. As someone, we all went to a predominantly white high school, and a lot of us go on to other colleges that are within cities that are predominantly Black and minority groups. And it's really important that Wissahickon takes the opportunities they have at the high school and middle school level to educate their students on programs that disproportionately affect minority groups within the government, and that we encourage voting and educate yourselves on your federal and local government, and that it's not the responsibility of our classmates of color and community members of color to educate ourselves. It's not their job to teach us, and then I think we can all think of a few friends and family members that should be here today, and I think it's like our part as white counterparts to reach out, educate others, and take that opportunity. So just a reminder to everyone today, please go home, educate yourselves, take the time to do so. Thank you.
Love you, yes.
We, the current and former students of Wissahickon School District, make the following immediately actionable demands upon the Wissahickon School Board to permanently and holistically eliminate the discrimination and racism students of color face by fellow students, teachers, and administration. Until our demands are met, we will continue to loudly voice our experiences to the public community. Our 10 demands are going to be read by 10 different speakers, and after each speaker, we invite you all in the audience to engage with us. All of us will say, what do we want? And we will all say to you, equality. Or you'll say equality. What do we want?
Equality. When do we want it?
When do we want it?
Now.
Okay. So I'm gonna read the first demand. We demand the immediate implementation of effective and ongoing cultural proficiency training for all members of the Wissahickon School District staff. This training should occur not only during new teacher induction, but at least 10 times per year for all staff. Training should be focused on identifying and addressing systemic racism within our education system, including but not limited to topics such as microaggressions, the myth and harmfulness of colorblindness, white privilege, implicit bias, the true definition of affirmative action, culturally responsive pedagogy, and white supremacy cultures in schools. Specifically, this training should be designed to push staff into exploring their own implicit biases and prejudices in order to show fully to our students of color. There should be an expectation that all Wissahickon educators valuing diversity, developing cultural awareness and mindfulness, participating in cross-cultural discussions, learning about all students' cultures, and embedding cultural knowledge into Wissahickon education in order to acknowledge and adapt to diversity. So what do we want? Equality! When do we want it? Now! Okay, demand number 2. We demand the implementation of effective ongoing cultural competency programs for students beginning at the K-5 level. Wissahickon students must learn to value cultural identity and develop views about cultural differences. By instilling such values within Wissahickon students, they will be better equipped to interact effectively in cross-cultural situations. These skills should not only be developed through assemblies, which appropriately address racism at every grade level, but also through the incorporation of such values within each individual level of teacher practices. For example, cultural competency should be worked into the curriculum within the appropriate departments, such as art, music, English, language arts, beginning at the K-5 level. And what do we want? Equality! When do we want it? Now! Period.
I'm going to be reading demand 3. We demand the immediate development and implementation of a zero-tolerance policy for racism, much like the district's sexual harassment, child abuse reporting, and acceptable use of technology policies. After providing professional development in the areas of cultural competency and systematic racism, students and staff need to be accountable for microaggressions, as well as blatant racism, such as the usage of inflammatory racist language. A policy that clearly delineates the appropriate channels for reporting racist behavior and the consequences for such behavior will create an environment in which victims, as well as bystanders, feel safe in reporting offenses, creating a school where there is truly no place for hate. What do we want? Equality! When do we want it? Now!
I'll be reading demand number 4. We demand the hiring of a racially and culturally diverse faculty. We must reevaluate the current hiring policies with a specific view toward racial diversity in order to eliminate any existing structures that may be inadvertently discriminatory. Across the country, we know that students of color, particularly Black and Latinx students, are statistically more likely to receive harsher punishments like out-of-school suspensions than their white counterparts. They are simultaneously more likely to be excluded from gifted programs and other extracurricular activities that lead to higher student achievement. Wissahickon School District is no different in this regard. To overcome the subconscious bias that contributes to the racial disparities in student achievement, we need a diverse staff that can enact compassionate disciplinary actions across all gender and racial identities in the district. We need teachers who will recognize the talent that resides in students from underserved and marginalized communities and reward them at the rates they deserve. While we work to build more inclusive learning environments, it is also immeasurably crucial for all students to have mentors and leaders that have relatable backgrounds and experiences to their own. A racially and culturally diverse faculty will lead to a safer and more supportive environment for the entire student body and reinforce the message that race should not be a determining factor in one's success. What do we want? Equality. When do we want it? Now.
I'll be reading demand 5. We demand the implementation of a culturally responsive pedagogy and curricula for every subject, including but not limited to African American history, Indigenous studies, and ethnic studies curricula for all students grades K through 12. We must ensure that the district is providing an education that is representative of unbiased and apolitical historical content. A study of the current curriculum being used shows that 68% of the chapter subheadings in the current 9th and 10th grade text are Eurocentric, while only 32% cover non-Western history, Marino 2011. Our students need to receive an unbiased world and national history from a variety of perspectives, and the district needs to provide curricular resources to facilitate this. We also specifically demand implementation of mandatory African American course study at the high school level, whether this be through an individual class or through revision of the social studies curriculum. Under the current history curriculum, there is only a 1 semester long African American studies course offering, which is not only optional, but also only available at the 12th grade level. In order to provide Wissahickon students with a comprehensive view of history, we must mandate the study of the Black experience. This course study will not only help to eradicate many implicit biases that many individuals unconsciously foster, but will also ensure that the district's acknowledgement of Black history travels beyond sporadic lessons in otherwise heavily Eurocentric curriculums. So what do we want?
Equality.
When do we want it?
Now.
We demand immediate investigation into racial and the discipline throughout the K-12 level, percent of the students that are given an out-of-school suspension. Therefore, we must address why there is a higher likelihood that a Black student will face suspension or expulsion when compared to the likelihood of that of a white student. While cultural proficiency training for staff will undoubtedly help to eliminate the implicit bias that contribute to such disparities, Wissahickon School District must allocate resources to ensure that the district does not contribute to the screaming. What do we want?
Equality.
When do we want it?
Now.
Yeah.
Demand number 7. We demand the immediate reevaluation of the screening process for the Gifted Support Program with a specific view towards inclusion of Black students. This reevaluation should include, but is not limited to, the implementation of universal screening for all students of eligibility in order to eliminate de facto segregation, and evaluating a student's potential in a holistic way, moving beyond assessment scores, as opposed to utilizing rigid guidelines that are inherently unfavorable to minority students. Overall, the district should aim to make the population of students within the Gifted Support Program to be representative of the student makeup of the district as a whole. In relation to other specialized education services, the district must ensure that the same level of priority is given to all students, regardless of race and language, in order to guarantee that all district students with exceptionalities receive a fair and equitable education. The district must provide these students with evaluations in their native language in a timely manner. Overall, minority students in specialized education must be provided with the same opportunity that every other student is given, regardless of the student's native language. What do we want?
Equality.
When do we want it?
Now.
I'll be reading demand 8. We demand the investigation of the lack of Black students currently enrolled in AP level courses. The district should educate all students in all level classes regarding the academic opportunities available to them. Not only should the district encourage minority students to enroll in AP level classes, but it should also provide students support to ensure success in such classes. Additionally, staff must undergo training to prevent implicit biases from hindering their course recommendations for students. We must ensure that minority students are encouraged to reach their full potential by narrowing achievement gaps that perpetuate lower educational ambitions for them. So, what do we want?
Equality.
When do we want it?
Now.
I'll be reading demand 9. We demand the appointment of a cultural leader in each district building. This leader will administer professional developments, faculty meetings, and discussions on the topics listed in number 1. The implementation of this leader will increase the feasibility of conducting 10 cultural proficiency training sessions per year for the staff. Moreover, these building-specific trainings will allow for personalized group discussions among staff members as opposed to professional developments that occur on district-wide basis. This culturally responsive school leadership will not only foster critical self-awareness among teachers, but will create an open environment for continuous dialogue relating to race and culture within the district. So what do we want?
Equality.
When do we want it?
Now.
it home, girl.
Demand number 10, which is the last demand. We demand the immediate hiring of a director of equity as well as the formation of a committee of equity. The director of equity and instruction should assist Wissahickon in the implementation of the goals presented in this list, including but not limited to advising upon curriculum development aimed at teaching students to think critically about racial and cultural diversity, assisting in the recruitment of faculty of color, publicizing the school's equity efforts, and coordination with cultural leaders to further develop cultural proficiency among staff. The Committee of Equity should consist of teachers that are committed to the cause of racial justice. The committee should actively work to promote open dialogue between district staff and students regarding issues of racial justice and equality. Additionally, the committee would coordinate with the Director of Equity as well as investigate the pervasive issues regarding race that have been listed throughout these demands. Moreover, this committee should develop a clear reporting process for students and staff who have experienced racism or other forms of discrimination. It's important to note that surrounding school districts already have such committees in place. What do we want?
Equality.
When do we want it?
Now.
A few more minutes and then we're wrapping up.
So if you guys heard of all of those demands and you really support them, we encourage you now at this point to, on the back of your programs, there's a QR code. You can use your phone camera to scan it, and that way you can sign the petition. 600 people as of this morning have already signed, like more so. And if you don't have a phone on you or it's just not possible to sign it right now, you can go to this link, tinyurl.com/WSD anti-racism petition and sign. And there is an option to keep your name private, and we will publish the full list of names except for those who indicated they wanted to remain anonymous no later than July 27th and present it to the school board. Thank you again for coming out today. This was amazing, guys. Thank you.
Lastly, I personally want to extend a huge thank you to everyone who helped make today happen. From the speakers who are willing to voice their experiences to the audience members who are willing to listen for 3 hours in the hot sun. You have all engaged in the first step to making Wissahickon a safer community for all. Please remember that today is the beginning of the conversation at Wissahickon. This is a movement and not a moment. Thank you again to everyone, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Should we just end it? Need help with anything? Go down.